First of all, thank you for all of the help that you give to us, both financially and by participating, asking questions, participating in this community in so many different ways, joining book studies, etc. Please continue if you can to help us, support us. This evening, we're going to do another mountains and rivers or questions from the sangha, basically. And I think might do that the rest of the month, just because sometimes that seems to be a workable way rather than I come up always with some kind of a topic, talk for 15-20 minutes and then respond to questions. I think it seems to be quite helpful to just start out with questions. So if you have questions about the sitting practice of meditation, Buddhism in general or in particular, I might not be able to always respond in a helpful way, but I will try. So starting in here, questions.
When you're bowing, what creates other bowing?
Fear.
When you're bowing, what creates fear? Bowing.
Believing thoughts and emotions and making assumptions that there is something else going on over there or something else going on over here. Basic misunderstanding about the nature of identity, thinking there's more than one thing, or that there's even one thing. Belief, thought process completely blocks our fundamental perception of who we are and what this is. Some people seem to be born closer to an understanding, and some people seem to be so far away from an understanding they will just continue to close down, shut down, go to war, go to peace, go to success, go to failure, wake up, go to sleep, live and die, live and die, live and die. More?
When you're bowing, so when we perceive other over there,
yes,
is that other created out of fear? Bowing?
It's supported. The initial area could show up in different ways that might not be so fearful. But the fear of other, the fear of loss, the fear of coming to an end, the fear of humiliation, the fear of not looking good, of not showing up correctly, living up to a standard of success, an idea. More? Any more in here? Questions on Zoom? Do you have them?
Susan Bowing.
Go ahead.
Sokuzan, if we can't see through our cover-ups, then how can we see through anything else? Bowing.
Well, the beginning is to see that you're actually covering things up. And you won't do that if you're busy believing this thought, rejecting that thought, going after this emotion, seeing that person is to blame for how you feel or that situation, looking for other, warfare, peace fair for that matter, trying to go to peace, just to stop the warfare without really understanding the nature of warfare. This is what's happening all over the world, trying to be peaceful. Is it wrong? It's not wrong. It's not about right and wrong. It's a misunderstanding where the intention is very, very good, but not seeing the fundamental substrate of the confusion and thinking that there are bad guys and good guys. This is pretty believable, but it's just not true. So looking at the cover up is the beginning. You sit down, you hold still, and you slowly over time, it becomes more and more possibly embarrassing to see how crazy you are, how nuts you are, using relative terms. And what I mean by that is how you believe your thoughts. You're not, if something's right in front of you and you prefer this security of this temporary prison or jail called your ideas, your conclusions, your thought patterns, your beliefs, your prejudice. And it looks like this. This is the mudra of the ego, tighten fist. And what is the mudra of realization? If there even is one, it will look more like this, just this. Not receiving anything, not presenting anything, but not doing that either. But just dependent origination showing up as stillness.
Susan Bowing, so you use the word warfare. So how do we stop fighting with reality, Bowing?
First, you have to acknowledge that you're fighting. A lot of the people who are fighting don't even know they're fighting. They just think they're right, and they're just doing what they have to do because they're right or they're correct, or they're operating out of fear, but it's so covered up, but with their ideas, their opinions, their judgments, their prejudice, that they don't even know they're afraid, because it's well covered by relative truth that is grasped at, rejected at. Excuse me. More? Susan or anyone?
Susan Bowing. So I've heard you say we need to see the space in which things move, not just the movement. What do you mean by the space in which things move, Bowing?
Well, it's like if you're just all, to use an example, an image I've used probably dozens of times, if not hundreds, it's like looking at the sky. We're trapped by the clouds. We're seduced by the clouds, the big clouds, the little clouds, the dark clouds, the light clouds, the clouds streaked with lightning, the clouds reflecting the sunlight, and all the polarity that happens. But we miss the sky. And the sky is closer, using an analogy, is closer to the fundamental nature of consciousness or mind. It's just mind only. Clouds may be there, they may not be, but it's just the mind. And so the idea there is to watch what moves so that you can see the nature of the sky or the nature of the mind. You might have to watch a lot of movement, a lot of confusion, a lot of beliefs, opinions, judgments, passion, aggression, ignorance, pushing, pulling, attacking, ignoring, grasping, rejecting. You have to look at that. You can't stop it because it is an illusion that you or I are captured by, that we believe. Can't hear you, Georgios. Can't hear. Can't hear. Looks like something's turned off there because your microphone area has a line through it.
Oh, now you hear me?
Yes, I can now. Go ahead, please.
Oh, okay. Hi, how are you?
All right.
Hi. So,
Is there a question?
no, I just, I'm still wake up. I'm still awake, and I saw that you start the video. I said, let me connect to the screen, just listen in the Dharma talks. It's interesting always to listen, you know.
Other questions anywhere?
I always like to listen because I learn.
Please ask questions. Like, you can listen all you want, but you have to ask questions, please. And thank you. You have a question?
Definitely, yeah. But really, if I have some question, I will ask, definitely. But because you answer to all the questions, that's why probably I don't need to ask something. I don't know, but if I have something to ask, definitely I will ask. If I have some question.
Okay, so we will go on to someone who has a question. Go ahead, please.
Honorable, you say you get to know,
Thank you.
we should get to know ourselves.
Yes.
Are we getting to know the illusion?
You get it? So you're getting to see that which you believe is true, that which you believe is false, and that which you believe is in some way neutral, that all of those are unreal. Those, anytime you take a position on anything, this reinforces the relative truth that is basically killing the world. The belief in right and wrong. This goes way back in spiritual traditions and all kinds of cultural traditions. The belief that there is a right and a wrong, and that you're right or you're not right, and you need to change your mind or something. So it's about looking at this without joining, without rejecting, and without walking away from it. Passion, aggression, and ignorance. More.
Well, Divine, so you're saying then to get to know the illusory self.
To get to see that who you think you are, that your ideas, your opinions, all of that is dependently arisen. It is unreal. There's no separate being anywhere. That's an illusion that you are a separate being with silver hair, wearing glasses, and are a woman, and are a monk, and are this descriptions. We continue to talk to ourselves. We believe our stories. Instead of just looking at what is arising, we start telling stories about it. We add on, we comment. There's constant commenters going on that makes it look like there's such a thing as a past, such a thing as a future. There is not. The only past there is memory. But everything that is in the past is a construct that is based on an aspect of consciousness that tends to collect things. But even that which it collects, it can't collect what is purely there because there's nothing there. It is an illusion. So we have memories of the illusion. We use those to reify, reestablish, and enforce our position on any damn thing. Right or wrong, up or down, back and forth, success and failure. It's an illusion. And it's not only unreal, even the illusion will not last. It is impermanent. More? Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Yoka bowing.
Yoka.
I have several people on YouTube that have questions.
Very good. Let's take them one after another.
Adriana bowing.
Adriana.
How can I endeavor to be with knowing that I have hurt people? Bowing.
Find out, you're bound to hurt people. You're going to elbow somebody. So rather than go towards that, let's go towards a fundamental misunderstanding. Is there a solid being that you are? Look at the wall, sit down, hold still, look at the wall, and watch what keeps coming up as what looks like your thoughts, your emotions, your ideas. These are all fillers that fill in, that provide us with the illusion that there is a solid separate being called Adriana. And that's unreal. It's not that there isn't a human form. We're not getting rid of everything, but it's not a separate being. It's consciousness arising as biology. Unreal. Relatively real, but ultimately unreal. Go ahead, please.
Yoka bowing. A question from Ben in Florida. Who is the purple alligator in the kitchen?
Just imagination. Just something we make up. It has just as much reality as your memory of what you had for breakfast. It has just as much reality as that. You can't prove either one of them. Even if you go and take a video, show a video that what you had for breakfast, I can produce a video of that purple alligator. I might just have to call Chat GPT or something like that. Get some help from somebody to produce it. But I could produce it, and it would be the same situation, produced differently with the same one. Go ahead.
Yoka bowing. Ian bowing. When do forms help us look more closely at our minds, and when do forms cover up? Bowing.
When the form is used to provide space and encouragement to see what is showing up in that structure, the space, to see the space itself by watching the forms that arise in it. We have one here. It's a structure. It's called a schedule. It's called a meditation cushion. It's called a wall. It's called a monastery. It's called monk's robes. It's called the vow to save all beings, the vow to put others before yourself, which the ego mind does not want to do that. There are egos out there that will start whole organizations to help others. But it's also about making money. It's also about being a helpful person. This is just more ego. I'm not saying they wouldn't help people. They probably would. But the intention is still to make money or to have a good image of yourself.
Combine. When you say that it's also about, is this ego part of what's happening, bowing?
Is this your question?
Yes.
Repeat it, please.
When you say it's also about, is this the ego hijacking or endeavoring to use the forms, bowing?
Could be. And to the other end of that previous question, when we're using the forms, if we grasp at the forms and make the forms, you have to do the form this way. Quite often this is done in Buddhist organizations down through the centuries. There's a right way to do this. You can't attain liberation unless you're practicing Tantra. You can't attain liberation unless you're practicing with the Nyingmas or with the Sokuzan, or with this lineage or that, or under this teacher or that teacher. Some teachers feel that you just need to tell the truth. You don't need all this rigmarole or complicated forms and so on that come up and show up in areas like the Vajrayana, which is full of forms. You might need that, you might not. So when we're using forms to protect ourselves rather than to help us see more deeply what this is, or when we're using forms as a possible Dharma teacher to control people, to get followers, to make promises, it's just more circularity under the name of what? Spirituality. More if you have it.
Yoga bowing. I have a question from Chakis.
Who?
Chakis bowing. Is seeing, even if it's an illusion, taking a position, bowing?
Of course it is. It is, but there's, I never said, maybe somebody else did, but I never said you shouldn't take a position. I said you should be aware of taking a position. Awareness is what is being promoted. The awareness, the consciousness, not the position or lack of a position. You don't have to do things correctly. It's about being aware of that. And if you're aware of it, then that any kind of positionality is difficult to hold on to as some kind of a reference point or something to stabilize you. Illusion is just a word. We're not even sure what it means, other than it means that something that's not exactly real, or something that looks one way, but we know it's not really that way. More from Jacques or anyone?
Nothing further here.
Yes.
I have a follow-up question about the forms. You said that forms also could be our ego to maybe our ego to reinforce the solidity of oneself.
Yes.
What can I do if I'm aware of I'm not obeying the forms?
If you're not obeying the forms?
Yes. For example, if I was a monk, if I, just as what you suggested, be aware of the vows, be aware of the forms. However, yes, I'm aware of I'm not obeying to the forms. So what should I do? Bye.
Well, it's so there's no standard for it. I mean, you would have to first of all, be pretty sincere about receiving the vows and endeavor to use the form of being a monastic or receiving the bodhisattva vow to train your mind to see more clearly what this is based on your inspiration of studying with a teacher and of studying the Buddha's Dharma as it comes down through the centuries from thousands of years. And if you're falling outside of the form, or if you're no longer practicing, then you would talk to your teacher if you have one, which in your case you do. You would talk to the teacher about that. And there are people who have jobs, so they can't always practice as much as the other person can. And some people are able to just more a stronger sense of aligning themselves with a particular form, have an ability to do that, you might say. And other people have a lot more difficulty meeting that form the way it is described. So there's no, the right and wrong area is just, it's a big misunderstanding, and it does not do justice or pay respect to each person's individual form of confusion. That's why I say we're going to do this using this particular path, the Buddhist path. It's necessary to have a teacher. I'm not saying you couldn't do this without one. And what would I say on top of that? Go ahead. I mean, why not? Go ahead and try to do that. That being said, unlikely this will come about because we tend to believe what arises in our mind, including that we're attaining enlightenment or that we are enlightened. And so all you would have to do is do what you're doing now. You sit as much as you can, you take care of your children, and you've come here and visited once. And so, and you attend book studies and so on. So I don't see anything that's out of line there, other than you may have some frustration that is arising over your practice, may be somewhat discouraging to you. Further question, Young?
No. Thank you. Bye.
You're welcome. In here? Thank you.
With mind only, perception only, and consciousness only, are mind, perception, and consciousness synonymous?
Well, they're different words used in different ways, but very much it's about consciousness or awareness or perception. It could be perception if there's something being perceived and there's the illusions, there's someone perceiving, then that's the area we would look into. It's perception only, as it says on the banner. There is no subject, there is no object. Those are an illusion. And even the perception itself is illusory, but we need to proceed in a way that is respectful of all of that confusion, all forms of confusion. Go ahead, please. More.
Bob bowing.
Bob, go ahead.
So if using forms to serve others is also just ego at work, then
not always. Not always. No, sometimes that's very, very authentic, and it's very helpful. It's relatively very, very helpful. We're not against that. I'm just saying that sometimes when somebody is very helpful to others, quite often, not every time, but sometimes their motivation is about also being a person who looks very helpful.
Right.
So the difficulty that can come up there is you might be getting in the way of people in some situations with the idea that you think you know what they need. And this is a big assumption to think you know what anybody needs. If they're asking for food, your guesswork is over with. You just give them some food. Go ahead, sir, if you have more.
No, that was very, very helpful. I think it's just hard at this time in my life to find the more or less formless or egoless way forward to serve. And I'm looking for a way to trust myself to serve without what you just said are these illusions.
I'm ready to respond if you're ready to receive it.
Ready.
The very best, and I'm biased here. I'm very biased based on a long time doing this, looking at this confusion over here, is sit down hold still, look at the way you deceive yourself so that that deception is no longer running your life. So you see the deception. You have to see the deception yourself. You just can't be non-deceptive. You can't just stop. I'm not saying you can't put some big have some strong movement towards a more basic sanity or more basic understanding of dependent origination and of the world that we live in, the relative world. But the fundamental understanding is the fundamental misunderstanding is mistaken identity. There's no solid being here. This is an illusion. And that out there is an illusion. And that's why it is so difficult and so challenging and seems to take a strong spiritual path to work with it, not just the relative path of being a helpful person. So find out who you are so that your idea of your mistaken identity or your mistaken understanding of that doesn't go out onto the world under the guise of being helpful. Find out who you are, and then you'll know exactly what to do next. You'll know who to support, who not to support, and who to not be bothered with.
Bowing. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Jishin bowing.
Yes, Eugene.
How are we helping others when we are receiving on the cushion? Bowing.
Well, as my teacher, Chogyam Trungpa, would say, at least you're not being a nuisance to others when you're sitting on the cushion. So that's one way of looking at it. The other way is you're training your mind to see clearly so you won't take your unexamined confusion, thinking it's the truth, out on others, whether it's your partner, whether it's your neighbor, whether it's anyone, and blaming them for how you feel or blaming them or spreading confusion that you think is the truth from your own mind stream. If you believe your thoughts and believe your emotions, pretty difficult not to create more chaos in the world. It might be just in your kitchen with your partner. It might be with your next door neighbor arguing about the sound of their lawnmower. Could be any number of things. More? Jishin.
Thank you.
Is there any questions in here, please? Yes.
Bowing. Some more questions from YouTube.
Go ahead.
Ben asks, if you take a position, are you sacrificing the capacity to observe, if only momentarily?
You could say that anytime you grasp at something, lock down on something, but sometimes it's so conditional that that's what you have to do. It's dependent arisen. So you find yourself doing things that you didn't necessarily think about ahead of time. But it's yet it is not particularly impulsive or compulsive. It just seems to be the next thing that needs to be done. And to anyone around you, maybe even to you, it looks like you're taking a position on that.
Yoga bowing. Question from Phil Bowing. How do we know if it's awareness or the ego self trying to act out what it thinks awareness should be? Bowing.
So you've said a mouthful there, and the way that comes about is by sitting practice, and I'm biased, as I said, sitting practice of meditation. So you watch what shows up in the mind, what goes away, what comes back, what goes around, in terms of pushing, pulling, shutting down, and watching how anything that arises in the mind, the ego part of the consciousness will push on it, or the ego part of the consciousness will grasp and agree with it and change it and modify it. And part of the consciousness that is ignoring will just shut it down, turn away from it, distract itself from it, because it doesn't want to hear that kind of situation, because it's not supportive to that illusion or particulpita of an imaginary self that needs this and doesn't need that, is in favor of this but not that, and blames her, blames him for what's happening over here. Not able to be responsible for your own thought stream, thinking that other people are causing it. As it says in the sadhana of Mahamudra, we think we possess our own projections, and we do not. We don't belong to anyone, but we think we do because there's an ego that thinks that feeling or that emotion is me feeling that way. More? Good. Anyone else in here? Yes. Go ahead.
When something arises on the cushion or in life and we either like it or don't like it,
Yes.
and then start adding or pushing on it. If we're not doing that, does just the, not sure if I'm asking this correctly, does the liking and disliking just still remain? And I'll start there.
It could. There's not going to be any kind of conventional, dependable results in any direction. You're not going to be able to get some kind of validation of anything that's going on because it is way too complicated. The simple thing is we get hooked by, because if this moves through the air and runs into something else, it produces something else. Produces a lot of things, but one of the things that produces that's obvious is the sound you can hear. That kind of cause and effect, we get caught in that, and it gives us the illusion that, well, if this pushed that and this pushed that and that, then I could get in there and I could push on this and get my way. I could push on this or put money in the right place at the right time based on this, this, and this, and become wealthy. There's just all of the other things that are rotating around, looking for some kind of power, some kind of strength. And the causes and conditions that arise around that as this particular person, some people are going to be just natural at playing basketball, but you can't just say anybody can be a basketball star. It's just crazy to think that you can't. There needs to be a lot of natural ability there. So that's a lot of dependent origination that hasn't been even accounted for when somebody has said, well, all you have to do is you shoot a lot of baskets, and pretty soon you'll be really good at this. You might be pretty good, but it doesn't mean that you can go against all of the karma that was not necessarily in your favor, that is completely hidden. More about that's a good area. If you can go into it deeper, I will try to go with you.
It seems like even the liking or disliking is some kind of grasping, subtle grasping.
It is.
Is there a neutral?
Neutral is bullshit. I'm not saying there isn't a neutral, but to try to neutralize, to try to find, as it says in the Buddha's Dharma, the middle way. You can't find it. If you see what this is, then you are that, but you can't locate it. Ego would like to go in and try to locate that. And that's why I'm calling it feces of a cow. Male cow. The bull.
Is, maybe I'm thinking neutral is equanimity. What is equanimity?
Equanimity is no polarity. It's not the balance between good and evil. There is no good. There is no evil. These are projections. There's only this. There isn't anything. Even equanimity is something that is endeavoring to describe something that is impossible to describe. Just like we use the word silence, but it's not even that. We use the word stillness, but it's not even that. But we need to use relative terms because that's all we have. We can't speak in absolutes. This is the Zen masters of old, Chan masters, and even Tibetans and other teachers down through time have tried to use humor and contradiction and reverse logic to show that the way the ego mind sticks to certain things and uses logic or reason to fight with the ultimate nature of what this is. Scientists have no idea what consciousness is. They speculate on it, and you can read all about that several places. Start with Wittgenstein.
What about, is equanimity no attachment? The absence of attachment? Or is it?
Well, it's not about no attachment. because some of the attachment needs to be there because of dependent origination. So some of the hooking onto something needs to be there in one case. In another case, it doesn't, so it won't be there. So to try to go in and be unattached, then this creates a very shiny, polished, highly sophisticated form of ego who is not attached to anything. That's where I'm going with what you're asking me. So when I say, don't try to detach or become detached, just look at the attachment. Just see the way you grasp anything. And don't let it go. Don't let anything go. And I could also say, don't hang on to anything, but you probably are already hanging on to something. And I would say, look at that attachment, every single finger of the mind that's wrapped around that thing that you want to keep, that you want to hold on to, that you think is a judgment, that you think is true. Just observe the attachment. This is awareness. And if it's time for it to come apart, based on all the other untraceable causes and conditions that provide us with any particular singularity called this attachment, or this mind stream, or this human form, or this mind, then it may come apart, may not. But the consciousness won't care whether it comes apart or doesn't, because the consciousness is just that. It's consciousness only. There is no demand, there's no requirement, and there's nothing to live up to. There's no past, future, and there's no motion. So we use the idea of, or the words equanimity or balance as a way of helping us see the imbalance rather than trying to gain some kind of balanced persona or balanced life. Lots of teachers out there teaching this in different ways. You may be interested in what I'm saying, you may not. Yes, sir.
Are some outflows more helpful than others?
So by outflow meaning what give me a couple of outflows that seem to be quite a bit different, and then we'll talk about those.
It seems like something may come up where it's like something's going to happen with it. So I can turn away and try to pretend like it's not there, or I could try to communicate about it and maybe be more constructive, or I can just point my finger and blame. And it feels like there's some amount of control there.
So maybe the area I'm very much into communication, but the form that communication needs to take overwhelmingly as a practice is to listen, receive, smell, taste, touch, receive, use the six sense fields, including the mind, to receive rather than produce a pointing finger. Even though you may relatively be correct about it, it's still, anytime you blame anything, you leave out all the things that you have not taken the time to look at, because you, not just you, but me or anyone, we are so interested in concluding and being right because something has hurt us or offended us or triggered some area of our consciousness that is uncomfortable. We just want to blame because it gives us a little bit of relief, not much. So coming back to your question, I would say it's different. It would be quite difficult to track down that in such a way that we could come up with a good response about which outflow was maybe helpful in some ways and which is not. Though that probably is true on some level, but I don't know how you could unpack it in such a way that wouldn't just be very time consuming, waste of time. And I'm not sure how it would help you on what it is that I am here to promote, which is the spiritual path of seeing the truth, that you're not a separate being, never have been, never will be. And even though this life may be born and may die, who you are doesn't go anywhere. More?
Is the apparent choice in how that outflow shows up just a misunderstanding? Is that what I'm missing?
Say more.
I'm wondering if by thinking that I could respond differently, I'm already missing the point.
More than likely. Most important thing in any situation like that, I'm not setting up standard here, is just to receive as much as you can. So before you go into anything, that's why I say don't do anything unless you have to. If you listen to that and have a little bit of understanding of what I'm recommending, I'm saying just listen to what's showing up. Just listen. Just hear. And then if you need to do something, it will be pretty obvious what you need to do, especially if you wait, listen, see if you can see what it is that is actually happening in front of you with that other person or with that situation, whatever it may be. Give it a lot of time. Sometimes in the Buddhist tradition, this is sometimes called renunciation, or as Trungpa Rinpoche would incorrectly pronounce it, renunciation. It's not renunciation, it's renunciation. You knew that though. Yes? You're not going to respond. Go ahead.
If that outflow already shows up as some kind of resistance or closing down, should there be an intention to turn that into receiving somehow?
I wouldn't do too much manipulation with it. I would just return to the cushion, return to that situation by maybe contemplating that so much, which means just to look at the structure of whatever occurred, maybe go over that story a little bit and see if there's some areas that would be contemplation, but not be on the cushion so much. Would be separate from that after you do your shikantaza practice or yes.
What is renunciation when that outflow shows up as shutting down, turning away?
Again, it would just be that. It would be anything else about it. If you're aware of that, like you just described, then you wouldn't have to do anything else. Renunciation would already be occurring. Anything else is in there, then that starts to get suspicious. And ego's trying to get a piece of that success story called renunciation. You recognize that?
Now that you said it.
Now that I said it? Well, it's interesting that that's the same time I recognized it. Now that I said it.
Hmm.
Is there a further question? Anywhere in the... Yes, go ahead, Milka.
Milka bowing. I have another question from Ben.
Who?
Ben in Florida.
Okay, Ben in Florida.
What do you mean the humor of the Chan masters?
Did I say that? I guess I did. Did I say that? Okay, I meant they would take something that might be very difficult conundrum or question and just turn it on its head, because they don't have to show up as a being right or being wrong, because they're seeing, they're witnessing, their understanding goes beyond the relative truth. And if your understanding goes beyond relative truth, then you have a natural sense of humor. You're not just cranking up old man jokes. Might not even be funny.
Jishin bowing.
Yes.
You said that that consciousness doesn't care if we do something or not. Is there anything that consciousness cares about? Bowing.
So you've received a vow, Jukai, the Bodhisattva vow. So that is a way of training the mind, the consciousness, to look at a particular situation, which is to be with all things. So until you see you are not separate from all things, then there'll be that, the path quality. There's ground, path, and fruition. The ground is suffering, yours and that of the world. And the path is train your mind to see clearly so you don't add to the suffering of yourself or to the suffering of others. Long path. And then the fruition is, there's no path. There's no fruition. There's just reality. And you're not separate from it. Never were. So there's no, at that point, there would be no caring, no non-caring, and nothing in between that. You wanted to look into the third part of it.
Jishin bowing. Is the Bodhisattva vow the reflection of of the consciousness to the suffering? Bowing.
Seems to be. We see the suffering. The Buddha saw suffering. The first noble truth is life is suffering. And then the cause, the second one is because we want something else, simply put. And the third one is cessation. He doesn't spell out what ceases. And then the fourth one, or the path, is train your mind to see clearly. Shila, Samadhi, and Prajna. Or sit down, hold still, look at it. Meditation, discipline, wisdom.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Bob bowing.
Yes, Bob.
So I think I've found a source of a lot of my mistakes or errors, and what hit me. I'll get right to the question. Is Bruce Lee used to say before he would fight that he would stretch.
Who's Bruce Lee?
Yeah, well, okay, he's an illusion of a martial artist. He's one of the better known martial artists. So he would always say he had to stretch, but there were times where there was no time to stretch before he had to do something. So my question is, if one has to contemplate before making a decision, and hold that thought to come up with the right path, let's say. Lots of times I don't have that luxury. So my question is, how do I deal with the time element that's involved in decision making?
Don't make decisions. Don't make them. You don't really make decisions anyway. That's an illusion that you're making decisions. There's no such thing as a decision. And as long as you think you're making decisions and making choices, you'll continue to spin right up until the time of when the body goes back into the elements, so you pass away. I'm not condemning you to anything. I'm just saying that as long as you feel like you're somebody going somewhere, and that there's a right and a wrong, and there's a correct and an incorrect, then this is the very nature of relative truth. It is not the spiritual path. Spiritual path is to see the truth. And how do you do that? You look at the falsehood without pushing it. You look at the falsehood without explaining it. And you look at the falsehood without shutting it out. You watch and observe and receive this world as it is. As it is. Yes,
And
sir.
and Bob bowing, and this can be done in the real world versus there in the temple?
Well, it's not a versus. Some people need to sit down, have a structure, and they're here. And the ones that are off in the distance, they're off in the distance. There's nothing right, nothing wrong. If you need this, here it is. If you don't need it, stay away. Go do something else. If you're not interested in what I'm saying, please go do something else. I don't necessarily have the key to anything, particularly. So, but you don't have to live in a monastery. But I'm biased. I already said that. If you want to see what this is, you're going to have to stop running your constant thought process around in circles, in at the same time your body is in motion, because that makes it hard to see the confusion. It looks just like it's valid. I'm picking this up, I'm putting it down. I went over here, I stood here, I went like this, I went like this, I went like that. Body, mind are not two different things. And if you don't stop the body from moving around and watch the mind continue to ramp up, you will continue to be confused by what you think is true, because this is a big lie. It is an illusion. So find some time to sit down in front of the wall and watch the movement of the mind without the body moving. Just a suggestion.
Bob bowing.
Welcome, Bob Thiel.
The other Bob bowing.
Other Bob.
You just I think when you were referring to the fourth, I guess, noble truth.
Yes.
Just to come to the wall, to sit and be still. Is that essentially the same thing as where the cessation of suffering lives?
Yes.
Bowing.
And the cessation of suffering it isn't the cessation of the suffering, it's the cessation of the belief in a sufferer and in a belief in someone who suffers. The suffering is there. The suffering is dependently risen. It's nerve endings. It's the smooth feather across the palm, pleasure, and it's the railroad spike across the palm, pain. Pain and pleasure are same nerve ending, different kind of activity happening there. Same thing in the mind stream. Same thing in all of the sense fields, just shows up different ways. More, Bob?
Yes. So bowing. So say feeling of joy versus a feeling of sadness is, I think you would say that's an illusion. Does that live in the same place as pain and suffering? Bowing?
It's all consciousness only. Everything is welcome. Everything comes in. Everything comes in and takes off the shoes and has a seat. Everything gets a seat at the table. Everything. Nothing is left out.
Bob, bowing. One question that occurred to me a while ago that I meant to ask, and I'm not sure if I should ask it now because I might have the answer, but
wait. You never can have the answer. If I don't ever have the answer, how can you have it?
All right. I'm in the wrong place. Shoot. I thought I was getting answers here.
No, you should ask me the question, please. We'll have fun.
I worry sometimes that consciousness is akin to nothingness. And then I go to a place of like, well, if it's all nothingness, what's the point? So is consciousness nothingness? Bowing.
Yes and no. But I don't have any proof for it. It's just that consciousness, we wouldn't know about consciousness unless there's a form rising in it. The only way you can really have a taste of that, which isn't exactly something, but it's to be aware that you're aware. Just to be aware that there is awareness, that you're aware of not just awareness of this, awareness of the clock, awareness of the people, but just be aware that you can actually just be aware of everything. This is an old teaching, goes way back, not something I thought up. Just awareness of aware. And so you could use those concepts of like you described there, and I've already forgotten.
Me too. Thank you.
Oh, you forgot too?
Yeah.
Good. I needed some company. Thank you. Okay, I think we can take one more. Is there another one?
No, bowing. Yes, from Ben
In Florida.
If I take the position that I have a lot of time, is that the same as renunciation? Wow.
Did I have a lot of time?
Yes.
You don't have any time. There is no time. Look close and help yourself to look close. You don't have to join me. I don't have to be your mentor, but spend some time looking at the wall and get your own understanding of time. Find out what time is to you, so that if you see what it is, you won't have words for it. You won't be able to explain this to your mom or your son. You won't be able to explain it, but you'll know what it is. You'll finally know what time is. Or just read Dogen's Being Time, which is a chapter in the Shobogenzo. Read it 500 times. That's not very many. Read it. Read what he's saying. It's translation out of Japanese into English. What is that? What is time? Find out. Don't take Dogen's word for it, my word, or anyone's word. You find out what it is. Sit a lot. Very good. I think we can close now. Thank you so much for your time and attention, for your questions.
Hi, my name is Sokuzan, and I'm one of Sokuzan's monks. Sokuzan so freely offers his love to us and his wisdom through these talks, and never asks us for anything in return. If you value what he does and what he is, and want them to continue, please visit our donate page at SokukoJi.org. Thank you.